If they go to a cave and they see drawings in a cave, right? They see drawings, that is true. But here's a document which has been around, without a doubt for at least 2,500 years. No one doubts that the Bible is at least 2,500 years old. Now people doubt how many people wrote the Bible, whether Moses wrote the 5 books of Moses, whether Yeshaya wrote the books of Yeshaya. That is a matter of debate. But no one argues that the Bible is a 2,500-year-old document. I don't think anyone argues about that. Now, why can't you take a 2,500-year-old document at its face value and say, yes, it's true what it says. Let's suppose it's true. Let's at least suppose it's true. Why don't they look around? So that's number one. That's question number one. Just because they didn't find the jar of my grandmother, it doesn't mean that my grandmother didn't exist, right? Now, in those days, they didn't have birth records and passports and whatnot. Why? Why is it different?
Because like
we're talking about someone who lived 50 years ago.
Okay, 4,000 years ago didn't have passports and birth certificates. So how do you know? How would you know about Abraham if you find his pillow, or if you find his I don't know, you find his lunchbox?
You can't imagine your existence without your grandmother, or you can imagine your existence without the.
Yeah, but ask Abraham's. You're right. Ask Abraham's grandchild, who is who, by the way, who is Yaakov. Avraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov.
Yeah, but are there any family members these days?
Well, can you name your family 16 generation behind? Could you name it? Does that mean that you don't exist? No, you exist because you're short, but you don't know their names. You don't know where. Yes.
That doesn't really make sense because I feel like if they had descendants, then they would stay kind of relevant and they would know that they are descendants.
You don't know the name of your great-grandmother, honey.
Yeah, because she was irrelevant.
I know mine.
She wasn't relevant.
Yeah, like she was not, I don't know, Sarah or Rivka or Leah, so like she was completely random.
For you, she was pretty relevant because if she hadn't existed, you wouldn't be around.
Yeah, but like I feel that if, for example, someone was the grandson of, I don't know, Jacob, for example, he would know that he's a grandson of Jacob and he would like pass this on. And they would like, there are still people who know that their great grandmother was, I don't know which kind of celebrity or influential person. So I feel like in this way, the descendants of these people would also know they are kind of that family.
After a certain point, I guess they became less relevant for the historical purposes. If you read the Torah, if you read the Bible, not just in Torah, in other books of the Bible, it starts to list generations. Abraham had a son Yitzchak, and Yitzchak had a son Jacob, and Jacob had a son this, and it starts to list. Why? For what purpose? It goes to show why would the Torah waste time, right? If we suppose that the Torah is a document where every letter, every word, every sentence matters, why would it waste time to write all those generations, not other than trying to prove you that there's nothing to hide here, that we don't have nothing to hide. Here are the generations. After a certain point, you're right, after a certain point, they become somehow irrelevant. There was this, in the 1960s, in the 1960s, there was a big movement. It's still a movement today. It's not such a big movement, but it's a movement which is called Bible criticism. Bible criticism, right? They taught these studies in universities and also in rabbinic seminars in the Reform movement, in the Reform Judaic movement, Reform Judaism. They had seminars of Bible criticism. And then they come with all sorts of findings that because of the language of, say, the book of Samuel, because various parts of the book are written in various styles, so they suppose that there's many people who wrote that book. It's not one person who wrote that book. It must have been many, many people who wrote that book. Well, no one says that. By the way, as we said, I think we learned that last year. The Torah is the book in the Bible. The 5 books of Moses is the only part of the Bible which is God's word, verbatim. God said, and Moses wrote it down. That's only the Torah. The rest of it, even the prophets, are books that God talked to the prophets, and then the prophets wrote it down in their own words, through a godly intent or godly divine inspiration, let's say. Godly inspiration. But it's their own words. Now, how they write it, obviously these were prophets. These were people who knew what they were doing. They were not common people, at least to my understanding. And but if you by the way, so this Israeli movement, or this Bible critic movement, so they put in the computer a speech of the President Ben Gurion, the first president of Israel. So they put his I'm so sorry, the first prime minister of Israel. So they put his speech into that computer, and it turned out that 26 people wrote the speech of Ben Gurion. It's not true. It was just one guy writing it. You can't tell much about this. It doesn't say too much. It doesn't say too much.